Hi, it's John here from GPS Training. What we're going to do in this short video is address a question I get asked an awful lot from the UK users of outdoor GPS units. The question is, if I'm buying a GPS unit with the built-in TOPO Active mapping, am I also needing to buy the Ordnance Survey mapping when I'm walking in the UK? So first of all, we need to think, what is the TOPO Active mapping? The TOPO Active mapping we get preloaded on a number of GPS units. These are the eTrex 22X, eTrex 32X, GPS Map 65, GPS Map 65S, the GPS Map 66SR and the 66I, and then the Montana 700 series, which is the 700, 700I and 750I. So the first question we need to ask is, what are the pros and cons of the TOPO Active mapping? For pros, first of all, the key thing is it's free of charge. It comes preloaded on that unit, so you get it in with that unit, so you've not got any extra expense. And the other big pro is a proper digital map. So as you zoom in, you get more information. As you zoom out, you get less information. Very different than what we find on the paper map, like an Ordnance Survey map, because actually that's just a scanned image of the Ordnance Survey map. So as you zoom in, it just goes pixelated because we're just zooming in on what we can already see. So what are the cons of the TOPO Active mapping? The key thing is, it just shows everything as a path. It doesn't say if it's a footpath, bridleway, or frankly a private drive. So walking in England and Wales, where we have trespass laws, this is quite a fundamental downside of that TOPO Active maps. So the big question is, can you get away without buying the Ordnance Survey maps? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if you plan your routes on OS maps before you go, something like the GPS Training free route planning software. If we plan those routes on Ordnance Survey maps to get the rights of way and then overlay it on the TOPO Active mapping on our GPS units, it's absolutely fantastic. So if you watch my walk and talk that I did with the Garmin eTrex 32 in the Scottish borders, again, I'll link to it just above or in the comment box below, or in the notes below rather. You see I did exactly that. I planned on the Ordnance Survey route planning software from GPS Training, and then I overlay it on the TOPO Active mapping, and it works great. But then why did I say yes and no? The no being, the big problem with doing this, if you do need to change your route actually on the hoof when you're actually out on the hill, we don't have the information we get on the Ordnance Survey map to enable us to do that. Again, let's think back to my walk and talk that I did with the GPS Map 66I. Again, I'll link to it above and also in the notes below. When I did that walk and talk back in December, I came across I planned it on my free route planning software, as we just described earlier on, and I went out and walked that route. Now, when I was out on that route, I came across some footpaths that were blocked down with trees. I tried to get through another route, I couldn't get through it. So what I did actually, I reversed my route, which brought me back down a bit, and then I actually planned my route directly on my GPS unit. I planned on the map page, which got me out of that problem. Now, I could only plan on that map page because I had Ordnance Survey maps on that GPS unit. So that's where the majority of the time you can get away with having Ordnance Survey maps, because you plan your route and you follow that route. But if you do come into problems, as I did on that walk and talk, you have to have Ordnance Survey maps to get yourself out of that problems. Now, if you remember back to that video, again, have a look at if you've not watched it. It wasn't the best of conditions, was it? I got so as I was struggling to get through. It was starting to go dark. It was the middle of December, well, it was the end of December, and I actually walked it into the dark at the finish. So I had to have the Ordnance Survey maps to get me out of those problems. So my thoughts are, to summarise, if you can afford it, do buy Ordnance Survey mapping at the same time of buying your outdoor GPS unit. We call this a bundle price when you're buying it in with your unit, because often you're getting it at a discounted rate. On some map sets, you actually get about half the price when you're buying it in with your unit rather than buying it as a standalone product later on. So if you can afford it, it's worth it, because you can get yourself out of those problems on the hoof when you're out in the hill. I very much hope you've enjoyed this latest video, and if you can watch the 2 videos I referred to, the walk and talk with eTrex32X where I use the TOPO Active mapping, or the walk and talk I did with the GPS Map 66i where I got myself into problems and had to plan it on the hoof, it is very much appreciated. If you can subscribe, please do, and if you can click on the little like, that is also very much appreciated. And if we can help you in any way with your GPS navigation, please get in touch with ourselves at GPS Training.